Disney's Wish came out this weekend, and so far the audience score is actually decent for it. I mean, it's not great amongst critics, but as we all know, critics aren't the ones who actually determine whether a movie is successful or not. It's audience scores, and you can have a movie that has terrible critic reaction to it, but I mean, audiences love it and it becomes successful. I mean, case in point, look at Mario this last year. I mean, you can even look on the all audiences and top critics, and even then, yeah, top critics, 32%, that's a pretty abysmal score, but 79% for audiences. I mean, that's lukewarm, but still not too bad. But even then, despite all this kind of positive reaction to it, I still don't think it's actually going to be enough to carry it at the box office. This article from Deadline came out earlier today, and it was talking about the box office for Disney's Wish, and this is what it has to say about it. Yesterday, the movie featuring the voices of Oscar winner Ariana DeBose and Chris Pine saw $3.9 million, down 53% in what's looking like a $35 to $38 million 5-day and second. Estimate 3-day of $20.5 million at 3,900 theaters. So a $35 to $38 million 5-day opening is not a really good sign for this movie, because just a couple of days ago, Box Office Pro had it projected to make $49 to $66 million over its first 5 days. So, I mean, it's performing way worse than even the projections of just a couple of days ago when we already had some information to go by, which means no one is going to see this movie. I mean, there was bad early ticket sales for it. And yeah, it's even worse than what this was initially projected to be. And this is not a good sign, especially when you consider that the budget for this was around $200 million. You can tack on another $100 million for the marketing. So this needs to make around $600 million globally in order to break even. And it's looking like that's not going to be the case. And this is a trend that we've been noticing in recent years when it comes to Disney movies. And a lot of people have been pointing that out. Wish has a reported budget of around $200 million. This is a noticeable increase over many of Disney's previous film endeavors, and a trend that has caused more harm than good for the suffering company. And this does talk about how movies like Moana, Zootopia, Frozen 2, those cost around $150 million to produce. But in recent years, it says post-COVID, films like Lightyear, Strange World, Elemental, Wish, those cost around $200 million to make, and they've been losing money on those movies. This what it has to say about Elemental. Even Elemental hit this mark and was written off as dead before slowly creeping into success. A lot of the people saying that Elemental was successful are basically just basing that off of the fact that it had such an abysmal start, and it was kind of surprising that it was successful as it was. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, it made just under $500 million globally. And this is a movie that cost $200 million to make, another $100 million to market it, which means it needed to make around $600 million in order for it to break even. And it still fell way short of that. Now, granted, it was really impressive, the box office run that it did have, and only a $29 million opening weekend, which is significantly lower than the $35 to $38 million projected for Wish. So maybe if Wish is doing better than Elemental, and Elemental was just kind of like a modest flop for Disney comparatively, then maybe Wish could actually do better, right? Well, I don't necessarily think that's the case, because one of the things that helped Elemental is there was good word of mouth. I mean, you can look at the scores on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, 93% for audiences, 74% for critics. I mean, you can look at all audiences and top critics. I mean, it's still more or less moderately successful for critics and mildly successful for audiences. And that's way better than what we're seeing coming out of Wish right now. I mean, 32 for audience. I mean, I really don't see Wish having the same word of mouth that Elemental had, even though it's going to have a stronger opening weekend, or it's projected to have a stronger opening weekend. I still don't think it's going to be nearly as successful. And one of the things Disney needs to do, I mean, well, first and foremost, they need to make better movies. I mean, if it's a good movie, people are going to come out and see it, but that's another thing entirely. One thing that they can do just right now is just lower the budgets of their movies. And we're seeing them start doing that with their Marvel properties. So maybe they should do that with their animated movies as well. At the very least, it's going to mitigate the losses until they can hire better writers and get better directors in there to produce more quality stuff that we've come to expect from Disney in past years. And hopefully they can return the form, but I'm not expecting that anytime soon.